Hello there, and welcome to Kakaaki, the African voice on Africa Independent Television, AIT. My name is Kunle Adewale, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Kakaaki, the African voice, this wet Thursday morning. Here in the city of Abuja, it's been raining cats and dogs in the last 30 minutes, and of course, that means that it's going to be a very cool day. We do hope that things will cool down all across the country. But let's tell you what we have for you this morning on the program. The Nigerian Senate, during plenary on Wednesday, passed the landmark State Police Bill, the 6th Alteration Bill 2026. This historic constitutional amendment aims to decentralize law enforcement by establishing a dual policing system, bringing an end to 66 years of a single centralized federal police structure. This empowers states to establish and operate their own police services concurrently with the Federal Police Service. State governors are empowered to appoint a commissioner of police subject to the State House of Assembly confirmation and issue general policy directives regarding public safety to prevent political abuse against opponents. Now, a clause has been introduced which strictly prohibits state police from arresting, detaining, or using force against anyone for criticizing the government. The voting glitch syndrome reared its ugly head during the session as the Senate was forced to switch to manual voting after the electronic voting system suffered a technical fault. More than two-thirds of the senators backed the bill, but the bill is not yet law. Its passing by the Senate, however, was fast-tracked just one day after being submitted by President Bola Tinubu for consideration. Up next is the harmonization process to iron out differences between both chambers' versions of the bill, which has already been passed by the House of Representatives. The harmonized bill must be transmitted to the 36 states' houses of assembly, whereas at least 24 out of those 36 states must give approval to the bill before sending it back to President Tinubu for final signature. So, a lot has been done, but there's still a lot more to do before the state police bill becomes law. So on Kakaaki, the African voice, this Thursday morning, we shall look at the legislative journey of the state police bill. To date, is all on course for the bill to become law? How long is the whole process likely to take? Between then and now, how do we address the alarming security situation which needs to be addressed urgently? And these are some of the questions we shall put to the senator representing Benue South Senatorial District, Senator Patrick Abba Moro. Also weighing in on the issue is James Ugochukwu, Regional Secretary of the West African Civil Society Forum. But before then, we will focus on politics and environment. About a fortnight ago, a coalition of civil society organizations came on Kakaaki, the African voice, challenging Nigerians to get those seeking political office in the forthcoming elections to state what plans they have for the environment. They say recent global developments have shown that protecting the environment is fast becoming just as important as providing security and maintaining economic stability. And with recent developments across the globe, you cannot argue with them. Global weather is currently characterized by significant early summer anomalies with extreme heat waves stretching across parts of Europe and the central Midwest regions of North America. Meanwhile, parts of the tropics and equatorial regions, including areas near Nigeria, are experiencing seasonal wet weather patterns driven by shifting global climate cycles. The Federal Ministry of Environment has issued a critical flood warning for 26 states and the Federal Capital Territory following heavy rainfall projections. Hundreds of communities have been classified as critical risk or high-risk flood zones. Such challenges include natural and man-made environment problems. Desertification, coastal erosion, unprecedented flooding, air pollution, and land degradation are just some of the emerging current and future threats that need to be tackled with a blueprint. Nigeria needs politicians with such blueprints. Do such politicians exist in Nigeria? Or is there a need for the political system to throw up such people? So this Thursday, we will take a look at the seriousness of environmental issues in Nigeria and attempt to set some sort of agenda, not only for those seeking political office, but also for those saddled with the responsibility of protecting the Nigerian environment. Joining us to do this is retired Air Vice Marshal Akugbe Yamu, the president of the Environment Protection and Climate Change Practitioners. So he will also join us later on the program. But talking about joining us, you also can join us. You can be part of the program by sending your views and comments to all our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube at Africa Independent TV. That's where you'll find us on YouTube. That will enable you to stay up to date with the latest news from right across the globe. And talking about the news from across the globe, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll bring you the Kakaaki World News. Thank you for staying with us. This is the World News on Kakaaki, the African Voice. Iran on Wednesday described the deal it struck to end the Middle East war a declaration of America's defeat, as the top U.S. diplomat kicked off a tour of Gulf countries hit hardest by Tehran. The war that began with a massive U.S.-Israeli campaign of strikes against Iran on February 28 ended with the Islamic Republic striking an agreement its leaders have sought to portray as a victory.
The conflict has sowed chaos in the region, with Tehran retaliating against its foes by blockading a key waterway for energy shipments and launching thousands of drones and missiles at its Gulf neighbors. The U.S. and Iran signed the agreement last week and launched a process aimed at reaching a permanent settlement, with the Islamic Republic's leadership transformed but the system of rule firmly in place. Iran's top negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said on Wednesday that the Islamabad understanding was not the result of pressure and coercion, but rather the result of resistance and authority of the brave Iranian nation. The U.S. maintains several military bases across the Middle East, notably in the Gulf, where U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio kicked off a tour on Wednesday in a bid to reassure allies. Rubio is in the United Arab Emirates and is scheduled to hold closed-door talks with its leader, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, before flying to Kuwait and then Bahrain, where he will attend a Gulf Cooperation Council meeting. Rubio said he intended to discuss the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding with Gulf leaders. He insisted that no country is allowed to impose tolls on the Strait of Hormuz after Oman and Iran, which border the waterway, said they were considering charging costs for navigating the key exit route for Gulf oil and gas. Iran's chief negotiator also reiterated that peace in Lebanon, which was drawn into the war when Tehran-backed Hezbollah launched attacks on Israel, was a fundamental pillar of reaching a definitive agreement with the U.S.
China's premier warned attendees at Summer Davos on Wednesday that the world risks losing control of frontier technology, such as artificial intelligence, if governments are too slow to regulate it. Fears are growing of AI-driven disruption to labor markets and the security risks it poses, from using conflicts to breaches of cyber defenses and the potential creation of new bioweapons.
Speaker at the annual conference, Summer Davos, put on in China by the Switzerland-based World Economic Forum, are touted as drivers of economic growth. But shadows include concern over job losses and geopolitics. WEF's managing director Mirek Dosek said AI opens the door to new opportunities in education, healthcare, and other areas. He warned that there is a risk of a backlash against some of these technologies. He said, adding to pressure on the international economic system is the US-Israeli war with Iran, which has disrupted shipping from the oil-rich Middle East. These headwinds have led the World Bank to reduce its global growth forecast for this year to its lowest level since the COVID pandemic, with DUSEC saying that the world economy is currently facing a tepid environment. Li Qiang's speech at the annual meeting of the new champions, held this year in the northeastern port city of Dalian, offered the chance to deliver a message to the influential group of tech and business leaders in attendance. Beijing's number 2 leader characterized China's economy as a safe haven in a world now struggling with multiple shocks, including global energy shortages and severe disruptions to production and supply chains. Experts say, despite a striking boom in exports and AI tech, sluggish household consumption and entrenched property sector debt crisis have weighed on China growth since the pandemic.
China has detained 2 Japanese nationals for allegedly smuggling banned goods as the Asian rivals are mired in a months-long diplomatic spat. Japanese spokesperson Minoru Kihara told a briefing on Wednesday that Japan's consular offices in China were notified last month that 1 Japanese citizen was apprehended in the northeastern port city of Dalian on suspicion of smuggling goods subject to a national export and import ban. A week later, Japanese authorities were separately informed that another Japanese national was detained on the same allegation. The authorities said the 2 individuals appeared to be in good health and that the government will take appropriate measures from the standpoint of their protection. Beijing's foreign ministry said on Wednesday that the 2 Japanese citizens had been detained for violating Chinese law without giving details. Japanese spokesperson Go Jiakun emphasized the need for Japan to educate and remind its citizens and businesses in China to abide by Chinese law and regulations. The relationship between Japan and China worsened after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested in November that Japan could intervene militarily if China attempted to seize Taiwan, the self-ruled island claimed by Beijing. Under Takaichi, Japan has quickened its pivot towards a more proactive defense policy, further shaking off, with U.S. encouragement, its pacifist outlook in place since the end of World War II. Long-awaited monsoon rains have arrived in India's financial capital, Mumbai, cooling weeks of blazing heat, despite persistent fears of water shortages, with total rainfall so far staying below the long-term average. Agriculture Minister Shivraj Chauhan said a contingency plan had been rolled out for 315 vulnerable districts to help farmers endure potentially low rainfall linked to El Nino.
Hundreds of millions of people in India rely on the annual monsoon winds to bring vital rains that sustain agriculture and industry. However, climate change is making the country hotter and shifting weather patterns, and the presence of El Nino weather phenomenon this year has brought warnings of lower rainfall. India had received 60.6 millimeters of rainfall by Monday, 43% less than the normal amount for this point in the season, according to Weather Department figures. There was some relief for Mumbai on Tuesday when the first downpours finally swept in, delighting many of the city's 22 million inhabitants, even as some suburbs had to make do with light drizzle. Warnings of a potentially insufficient monsoon have raised alarm among farmers and policymakers. Authorities in Mumbai imposed restrictions on water use last week, cutting supplies to swimming pools and construction sites. Some residents slept on beaches to gain respite from the sweltering nighttime conditions in a dense city where many live without air conditioning. The monsoon is a colossal sea breeze that brings South Asia 70 to 80% of its annual rainfall between June and September. It sweeps north over several weeks, providing rain for farmers to plant their crops, a crucial lifeline for a sector that supports 45% of people in the world's most populous country.
Europe is struggling to cope with a record-breaking heat wave, with at least 94 million people expected to experience temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius, most of them in France and Spain. Experts estimate, based on analysis of forecasts from the German Weather Service and 2025 population projections from the Joint Research Center, suggest maximum temperatures will surpass 30 degrees Celsius for more than 350 million people. That's more than two-thirds of the continent's population.
The extreme weather, whose effects have been made worse by buildings and infrastructures not designed to cope with high temperatures, is being driven by atmospheric patterns trapping hot air. But a scientific study published this week said the current heat wave was significantly exacerbated by human-induced climate change, without which the current temperatures would have been 2 to 6 centigrade cooler. Chairman of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, warned on Wednesday that the heat wave is impairing the health of Europeans, urging the continent's leaders to invest in making their health services more climate resilient. Around 44 million of the nearly 67 million people in France are currently under the highest red alert level for heat. Average daytime and nighttime temperatures reached 29.8 centigrade on Tuesday, the hottest since current records began in 1947, with 39 centigrade to 41 centigrade expected on Wednesday from northwestern Brittany to Paris. Conditions at schools, offices, and factories have become unbearable as temperatures rise, forcing early closures and employees to work from home. June is a key month for tourism in Europe, but popular landmarks, including the Eiffel Tower and Louvre Museum in Paris and the stainless steel Atomium in Brussels, have been shutting early because of the heat.
Meanwhile, temperatures climbed across Europe again on Wednesday as record-breaking heat waves left tens of thousands of people without power and boosted air conditioner sales on a continent unused and ill-equipped to handle searing heat. Experts say the extreme weather is being driven by atmospheric patterns that keep hot air trapped in place for days, with these factors worsened by global warming.
France's national temperature indicator, an average of daytime and nighttime temperature across 30 stations, reached 29.8 Celsius on Tuesday, the hottest since measurement began in 1947. With 4 more French departments being under the IS-8 alert category Wednesday, around 44 million people are affected, according to AFP calculations, added to the 31 departments currently on orange alert. More than 90% of the French population is exposed to extreme heat, with temperatures of 39 Celsius to 41 Celsius expected on Wednesday, from Brittany in the northwest to the Paris region and in much of the southwest. The heat wave caused the country's first major power outage of the latest bout of extreme weather. After a heat-related incident, the transformer left around 68,000 households on Wednesday without electricity, the Northwestern Finisterre department, according to the authorities. While teams worked through the night to fix the issue, which took place late Tuesday, power is not expected to be restored in full until the end of Wednesday at the earliest. According to scientists, up to 106,000 clients were left without power by late Tuesday, as the scorching temperatures strained infrastructure built for the days before man-driven climate change made heat waves longer, more frequent, and more intense. Sales of fans and air conditioners skyrocketed in a country where most buildings are not designed to cope with extreme heat.
Dutch Prime Minister Rob Jetten has issued a formal state apology to members of the Moluccan community for their decades-long mistreatment by the Netherlands after Indonesia won independence from colonization. Many Moluccans from the so-called Spice Islands in eastern Indonesia fought for the Dutch colonial army during the post-World War II struggle for independence.
After Indonesia gained independence in 1949, around 12,500 Moluccans were brought to the Netherlands in a state-organized transfer to escape reprisals. They were supposed to stay only briefly before returning to an independent country as part of negotiations at the time between the Dutch government and Indonesia. However, the Dutch reneged on their promise to repatriate them, and they were housed in dire conditions with little attempt to find them jobs or integrate them into broader Dutch society. Unveiling a monument to commemorate that dark period of Dutch history, a visibly moved Jetten told hundreds of Moluccans gathered in Rotterdam that it was high time to apologize. Jetten said, "For the inadequate reception and housing, for being unseen and abandoned, for the unfulfilled longing for home, and for the grief and pain in so many families. For this, I offer my apologies on behalf of the Dutch government." The Ulu Kora monument was unveiled on the Lloyd Kade in Rotterdam, where the first ships transporting Moluccans arrived in the Dutch port. Those who were in the army were immediately discharged, and many were sent to former concentration camps used to gather Jews in the Nazi-occupied Netherlands. The 1970s saw a number of violent actions by second-generation Moluccans who felt betrayed by the Dutch for failing to secure their independent homeland.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez dismissed allegations of widespread corruption on Wednesday against his socialists after an ex-top aide was jailed for a graft scandal that risks toppling the government. A string of corruption investigations into relatives and former top political allies has jeopardized the position of Sanchez, viewed as a global left-wing hero for his clashes with U.S. President Donald Trump and Israel.
The Supreme Court sentenced José Luis Ámbalos, an ex-socialist heavyweight who helped mastermind Sanchez's rise to power in 2018, to 24 years in jail for pocketing lucrative kickbacks for health equipment contracts during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sanchez, a canny politician famous for escaping seemingly hopeless positions, fended off accusations from the conservative and far-right opposition that systemic corruption had gripped his party. Sanchez told Parliament that certain actors in politics and the media are trying to mix to put on the same level and therefore confuse people to create a sensation of widespread corruption which does not exist. A judge who had led a 2-year-long investigation into his wife Begona Gomez had ordered a jury trial for alleged influence peddling and the confiscation of her passport. Sanchez slammed the politically damaged probe for precautionary measures that he believes go beyond all reasonable limits. A verdict is due in the trial of Sanchez's brother, David, for alleged irregularities in his appointment into a public sector job in the southwestern province of Badajoz. Sanchez made the fight against corruption his watchword when he took power in 2018 after the main conservative Popular Party was convicted in its own graft affair. The opposition has demanded Sanchez's resignation and early elections, but the Prime Minister, one of the few remaining leftist leaders in Europe, insists he will see out his term until 2027.
In the mines of Mongbualu, the epicenter of an Ebola outbreak in the northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo, gold prospectors have no choice but to overcome their fear of the virus and carry on their back-breaking work. The current outbreak is caused by the Bundibugyo strain, for which there is no vaccine or specific treatment, but most gold production comes from artisanal mining.
The DRC's 17th Ebola outbreak was declared on May 15 after several unexplained deaths in Mongbualu in the mineral-rich but volatile Ituri province. It has claimed more than 250 lives with 1,000 cases in the vast Central African nation, but the real extent of the crisis is difficult to assess. In total, 209 people have been infected in Mongbualu, 89 of whom have died, according to official figures. Several miners were among the victims. The oak landscape was pockmarked with holes that dozens of artisanal miners tirelessly dug through. Men and women caked in mud broke up rocks that were then crushed to free the gold particles. They spent hours side by side, sweating and wearing themselves out in dire health and safety conditions. Some come from other provinces or neighboring countries, such as Uganda, hoping to earn a few $100s a week at best. Authorities say such large population movements have also dangerously contributed to the spread of the highly contagious virus, which is passed on by close contact and infected bodily fluids. Janine Akelo, a mother of 7 and day laborer at the open pit site, said that the diggers had no choice. They must continue to work to survive. Existing Ebola vaccines developed between 2018 and 2019 are only effective against the Zaire strain, which has caused previous major outbreaks. Red Cross workers in full protective suits have regularly intervened over the past few weeks to wrap bodies and prevent post-mortem transmission of the virus.
Kenyan prosecutors say they are preparing to charge several students with the murder of their schoolmates following a suspected school arson attack last month. 16 pupils aged between 15 and 18 died, and dozens more were injured when a fire broke out in a dormitory at Utumishi Girls' School in Gilgil, about 120 kilometers northwest of the capital, Nairobi.
8 students were arrested after police said they may have been involved in starting the fire by setting mattresses alight near an exit. Upon careful assessment of the evidence, the Director of Public Prosecutions has approved charges against the implicated students, the State Prosecutor's Office said in a statement. The 28 May fire tore through the upper floor of a dormitory containing 135 bunk beds and housing 202 students, forcing them to flee through a single doorway after the emergency exit failed to open. Police said after interviews with students and staff and a forensic review of the CCTV footage, 8 pupils at the school were identified as persons of interest in connection with the planning and execution of the fire. The suspects who are being held in custody are due to be formally charged in court, following a review of evidence gathered by investigators. The Office of the DPP said the suspects will face 16 counts of murder arising from incident. Prosecutors did not say how many suspects would be charged or when the charge will be brought in court. The students are expected to appear in court in Naivasha on Wednesday. The ODPP has expressed concern over a recent rise in cases of arson and related criminal conduct in learning institutions across the country, warning that those responsible will be held accountable. Education Minister Julius Ogamba said preliminary findings indicated that there had been multiple breaches of safety measures at Utumishi Girls' School, including overcrowding in dormitories and a locked exit door.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in Nigeria says it will arraign Bello Abdullahi Badejo before a federal high court in Abuja over alleged terrorism financing and money laundering offenses involving $2.53 million. According to the commission, Badejo is facing a 12-count charge bordering on unlawful cash transactions and possession of funds suspected to be proceeds of crime. The EFCC alleges that the defendant received large sums of money in physical cash from a former Bauchi State Accountant General, Seidu Abubakar, without routing the transactions through financial institutions as required by law. The Anti-Graft Agency says the alleged offenses contravene provisions of the Money Laundering Acts of 2011 and 2022. Badejo is expected to take his plea before the court in the coming days as proceedings commence. Nigeria's human trafficking syndicates are not relenting, so is the country's law enforcement agencies, as more victims continue to be rescued while criminal suspects are arrested. One of such groups operating from Lokoja in Kogi State, which specializes in luring young women with fake overseas job offers, has been picked up by the police and one victim rescued. Authorities say investigation is expanding as they race to track down other victims believed to be trapped in Côte d'Ivoire.
The suspect allegedly operated this criminal network as a tight-knit family enterprise. Police have named 38-year-old Angela Sylvester as the suspected ringleader of the group. Investigators say they worked directly alongside her 2 daughters and her son-in-law, Emmanuel David, to recruit vulnerable young women from their local community. A joint sting operation by the State Police Command and the Challenge Parenthood Initiative successfully tracked the syndicate to a location in Lokoja.
The victim was lured to Ivory Coast by the suspect and her family, where she was forced into different acts of sexual exploitation.
During the raid, operatives safely rescued 21-year-old patient Adamu. Investigators revealed the syndicate lured the young woman with a fraudulent job offer based in Cote d'Ivoire. The suspect allegedly processed her travel plans secretly, keeping her parents entirely in the dark about her whereabouts.
I just want to say, I and my family are sorry.
The mother, the family have been giving her problem. So she explained a lot to me, and I said, oh, but no problem. But the only thing is that, can you plate her? Because what she told me that she's doing there is hair.
To mommy, when mommy with the policemen and the organ of policemen now help me catch them. 1 week interval, they now bring my daughter to my mommy, and my mommy now call me, say, come, oh, your daughter now back. I praise you. I thank God and I'm happy.
Intelligence reports indicate several other local women from the area may still be trapped up within wider international trafficking networks. The Kogi State Police Command confirms the 4 suspects will face justice swiftly. They will be formally handed over to NAPTIC for prosecution as soon as preliminary investigations wrap up. Tehumba Akaya, AIT News, Lokoja.
That's the world news on Kakaaki, the African Voice, but stay with us. We have more reports for you on Kakaaki Business.
Welcome to Kakaaki Business. We start with the regulation of the Central Bank of India on the FX regime. India's central bank has released final regulation on how banks will calculate their foreign exchange exposure and the amount of capital required to cushion potential currency risk. The new framework is aimed at aligning India's banking regulations with global standard while ensuring uniform implementation across regulated financial institutions. Under these revised rules, the Reserve Bank of India has removed the separate calculations of onshore and offshore net open positions, simplifying the process for banks. The regulator has also allowed lenders to exclude certain structural foreign currency position from net open position calculations, providing greater flexibility in managing long-term foreign exchange exposures. And in Nigeria, Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission has ordered an immediate halt to all marketing and promotional activities linked to a purported initial public offering by Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals. The regulator says no application for such an offer has been submitted to or approved by the Commission. The SEC raised concerns over reports that some registered capital market operators were encouraging investors to subscribe in advance, create investment accounts, and pre-fund potential share purchases. According to the Commission, these activities are unauthorized and capable of misleading investors about the status of the proposed offer. The regulators warned that the circulation of advertisements, flyers, and digital campaign promoting the refinery shares could distort market expectation and create information asymmetry. Dangote Refinery has also distanced itself from the promotion, insisting it has not authorized any IPO campaign and advising investors to rely only on official regulatory communication. And Africa is losing a $100 billion trade opportunity to its own bureaucracy. The first Vice President of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Professor Adesoji Adesugbas, reviewed this during a press briefing on the Chamber's trade fair. Adesoji noted that non-tariff barriers such as border delay, poor infrastructure, and limited market information are strangling inter-African trade, which remains at just 15% despite the continent free trade agreement.
So that we can provide those goods there's some goods that we can produce here, but we need to be able to facilitate the small and medium enterprises to be able to do this. Access to finance must be at single digit. Why is it single digit in China and we are having double digit here? And we want to compete with them, and that's why you see everything that is coming into that we have virtually everything we are trading with here is foreign made.
Professor Adesugba added that the trade fair will bring business together to confront these challenges head-on, with dialogue focused on innovation and collaboration as pathway to sustainable growth.
For the 2026 edition, resilience, trade, taxation, and the economy reflects the realities of today's global and domestic business environment. Businesses continue to navigate challenges arising from economic uncertainties, inflationary pressures, supply chain disruptions, exchange rate volatility, evolving tax regimes, and rapid technological transformation. The fair will therefore provide a strategic platform for dialogue, innovation, and collaboration aimed at strengthening business resilience and promoting sustainable economic growth.
This year's trade fair will bring together businesses, investors, policymakers, development partners, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, innovators, and members of the diplomatic community from Nigeria and beyond. It will serve as a dynamic platform for exchanging ideas, showcasing products and services, forging strategic partnerships, and exploring new investment opportunities.
For a continent of 1.4 billion people, the stake could not be higher, and Abuja Business Community says the time to act is now. The Chartered Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria, CIPMN, has commenced strict enforcement of its licensing regulations, warning that individuals and organizations engaging unlicensed project managers risk sanctions, including jail term. The institute says the move is aimed at tackling persistent problem of failed, abandoned, and poorly executed projects across the country. A correspondent report. For years, Nigeria has grappled with abandoned projects, cost overruns, and delayed project delivery, resulting in huge losses for both government and private investors. Seeking to address the challenge, the Chartered Institute of Project Managers of Nigeria says it is moving from awareness campaign to full enforcement of its regulatory mandate. Speaking in Abuja, Registrar General and Chief Executive Officer of the Institute, Erin Badaway, says project leadership in Nigeria can no longer be left in the hands of unqualified practitioners.
They are breaking the law. The law has made it clear you cannot hire anyone in the public or the private sector to lead or deliver any new initiative, i.e. projects, in Nigeria if they are not licensed. There's a 2 years jail term sentence stipulated in the Act for anyone delivering projects in Nigeria without a license. And not only will those individuals be held accountable, but the organization that employed them, whoever is heading the organization or whoever has made that decision to hire those people, would also be liable.
The Institute also notes that effective stakeholder management and competent project leadership remains critical to the successful execution of projects, particularly in Nigeria's complex operating environment.
You need to be competent, and the only way to be competent is for you to have the basic skill and to apply the skill on everything you do that will change the narratives of what we need to do and what we are doing currently, and make sure that we improve the general things, improve things generally, and make it a better place for all of us to stay.
Success is no longer measured solely by adherence to cost, time, or quality parameters. Rather, success increasingly depends on the ability of project leaders to engage stakeholders effectively, manage expectations, foster collaboration, resolve conflicts, and create sustainable value for all parties involved.
The CIPMN maintains that stronger regulatory compliance and professional accountability are essential to improving project execution and ensuring better value for investment across both the public and private sectors. And lastly, the Nigeria Customs Service says its sustained crackdown on smuggling activities is yielding results, with the recent seizure of prohibited goods with a duty-paid value of more than 273 million naira in Cross Rivers and Akwa Ibom states. The command says the interception are part of effort to protect the national economy, support local industries, and ensure compliance with government trade policies.
Smuggling continues to pose a major threat to Nigeria's economy, depriving the government of much-needed revenue, undermining local industries and creating unfair competition for legitimate businesses. Beyond the loss of customs duties, the illicit trade in prohibited goods also weakens efforts aimed at promoting local production and economic growth. Against this backdrop, the Cross River Calabar Free Trade Zone Akwa Ibom Area Command of the Nigeria Customs says it has intensified enforcement activities to curb the menace. The Customs Area Comptroller Momodu Dauda disclosed that officers of the command intercepted two 20-foot containers conveying 1,996 kegs of imported refined vegetable oil along the Odopani-Calabar Highway with a duty-paid value of more than 195 million naira.
The command also intercepted 1,500 imported used tires of various brands and about 105 jumbo-sized rolls of second-hand clothing. These items are listed under the federal government import prohibition list and are therefore not eligible for importation into Nigeria. The intercepted and seizure are in line with the provisions of Section 55 of the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023, as well as the applicable trade regulation governing prohibited imports.
In a separate operation carried out earlier on Wednesday, officers intercepted 800 liters of premium motor spirit.
The interception brings the cumulative volume of PMS seized by the command this year to approximately 5,760 liters. In line with safety protocols and considering the highly combustible natures of the product, the seized PMS has been promptly disposed in accordance with established protocols.
He noted that the confiscated items are listed under the federal government import prohibition schedule, adding that the import restrictions are intended to protect public health, preserve environmental standards, support local manufacturers, and encourage domestic industrial growth.
And that's it on Kakaaki Business. Good morning.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. That was Kakaaki Business. Let's also bring you a few more reports of events in Nigeria that, of course, are very germane. And one of them has to do with the state police bill, which the executive sent to the National Assembly a few days ago. And only on Wednesday, the Senate passed that bill at an emergency session. And that bill, which was sent by the president, will create a framework, a legal framework for state police across Nigeria. Let's take a look at this report by our correspondent, Oyedia Urum.
Lawmakers reconvened in anticipation of the passage of the state police bill, but went into closed session.
A very brief closed-door session.
When plenary resumed, the Senate suspended its rules to allow some governors and senior government officials to witness the historic exercise, a move that initially met resistance on the floor. It took an appeal by the president of the Senate for lawmakers to revisit the issue and eventually admit some key dignitaries, including the governors of Ogun, Ondo, and Kaduna State, as well as the chief of staff to the president, Femi Gbajabiamila. The exercise also witnessed an early hitch as the initial plan to deploy electronic voting was disrupted by technical challenge.
And the need for the constituents to know where you stand on every issue that is good for us to go into manual voting.
Leading the debate, the Senate leader Okweyemi Bamidele described the bill as a major response to growing calls for the decentralization of policing powers.
National consensus among stakeholders, including state governments, traditional institutions, civil society organizations, security experts, and notable scholars on the need to decentralize policing, while also preserving national unity and security coordination.
Now the floor is open for debate.
In my senatorial district, we lost over 80 people in Tureta local government to bandits attack. Only 3-4 days ago, in the same local government, we lost some personnel of police that went there on rescue mission to send away bandits. So that is a clear picture of what is happening in most parts of the country. This is needed.
Following the debate, the Senate adopted the bill and immediately proceeded to clause-by-clause consideration, with all 25 clauses approved as transmitted by President Bola Tinubu. Key highlights of the proposed legislation include it prohibits any governor from directing a state police service to unlawfully target any person, political party, group, or association. It bars the use of police powers for partisan, ethnic, religious, sectional, or personal interest. The bill allows federal government to intervene where there is a breakdown of public order, where a state police service becomes incapable of functioning, abuses of fundamental rights, cases of partisan or electoral intimidation or threat to national security. Such intervention must be authorized in writing by the President, stating the grounds, the territory, functions, and duration of the intervention. But notices must also be sent within 48 hours to the state governor, the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, the National Police Council, and the National Assembly.
Well, the next phase for this bill is the harmonization stage between the Senate and the House of Representatives to iron out gray areas as passed by both chambers and eventually sent to the State Houses of Assembly, where about 24 out of the 36 states are expected to pass this bill before it's sent back to the National Assembly and eventually to the executive for possible assent. Oyeda Oro, AIT News, Abuja.
Well, movement. And very good movement too concerning the bill for state police. And this is the culmination of many years of agitation and advocacy by different groups across Nigeria. And of course, the key issues that Oyedia brought out of that bill, stating to us, telling us exactly what has been put in place to ensure that the state police is not abused by state governors, is key, because that was the main concern, the main fear of many of the people who opposed the creation of state police in the past, that state governors could abuse those things. So we get to see how it goes by the time it is passed and concurrence is secured and sent to the state houses of assembly for their own input and back to the president. How that will affect the fight against security is what Nigerians want to see, because Nigerians are tired of the insecurity. Anyway, let's move away from that and bring you our social intervention segment.
Now everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Hold on tight to that cushion. Don't lose it like me. Awesome. 3, 2, 1, and time. Wow, those 6 packs are popping, baby. Well done! I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym, Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye!
The influential leader. So when I got the definition of what leadership is all about from my mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, that leadership is all about influence, from the context of leadership is the ability to inspire, motivate, drive a group of people towards a particular direction. By inspiration, not intimidation or manipulation. When I got that definition, I began to think leadership from the contexts of influence. So what that means is that people will never follow any individual that they don't love, that they don't respect. So what that means is that that individual must have certain characteristics, setting skills that would make it possible for people to be acted, for people to be inspired, for people to get value from that individual. So either you are competent, so you gain influence through competence, or you gain influence because you are a compassionate guy that cares about everybody, or you gain influence from the fact that people can trust you, that whenever you give your word to them, your word matters, your word never fails. So you can see that all of these I've mentioned are instruments of influence. They are tools of influence. And if you put all of this together, then you cannot be talking about the influential leader, the leader who makes things happen.
Have you ever wondered how to overcome sexual abuse from your family member? Ever heard of the statement, let's do mommy and daddy? Sibling child sexual abuse is defined as sexual behavior between siblings that is not age appropriate, or incest is defined as sexual contact between persons who are closely related, such as in the case of parents and children, first cousins, and siblings. Incest usually takes the form of an older family member sexually abusing a minor. Victims of incest are often very reluctant to reveal what has occurred, and it's natural. Many young incest victims are told by the perpetrator that what is happening is a learning experience that happens in every family by an older family member who says so. Incest victims may fear they will be disbelieved, blamed, or punished if they tell what has occurred. Now, have you been sexually abused by a sibling, a parent, or close relative? There are things you need to know. Number one, be patient. Healing from incest is a process, and different people will vary in the amount of time required for their healing. Don't put yourself on a timeline or tell yourself you should be over this by now. It takes courage to seek help for healing, to talk about your experience, and to bring what was once in darkness into light. You also need to grieve your loss. Much has been taken from you. Let yourself feel the necessary pain and grieve the loss you have experienced. You also need to regain control. Being believed and being able to say what happened are most important first steps. You have permission to stand strong and to be empowered over the one who has exerted power over you. You also need to establish boundaries for adult survivors of incest. It is time to learn how to practice self-care. One important step is to establish healthy boundaries. Be sure trusted people are aware of your personal boundaries. Some people may want to confront their abuser. It's okay. Others will not, or will not be able to, but whatever you decide is fine. Know that you will heal. You do have a bright future. You're not a victim, but a survivor. You may have lost a lot, but you're not ruined for the future, because healing is possible. Find more intense guidance. You may need some professional guidance in order to truly deal with the depth of pain that incest has caused you. It is not wrong to seek out professional help. Seek out a counselor with some expertise in counseling survivors of incest. Honestly, that's my 2 kobo.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Ray Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen. bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
The issues as they break, the multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our governments seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go.
Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe it was for that reason in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Kakaaki, the African Voice, this Thursday morning. It is now 7 a.m. exactly, and time for us to look at what the papers have on the newspaper review segment of the program. I have here in the studio with me, Chuks Akunna, who is the executive director of the Authority newspaper. This morning is joining me. Good morning, Chuks.
Good morning.
You are here all by yourself this morning.
I guess so.
Well, I don't know. Is Chizoba joining us virtually now? Is she already on Zoom? I think she will join us virtually. Chizoba Gbeche, deputy editor of the Blueprint newspaper, will join us virtually in a moment. But let's give you what the papers have on their front pages, looking at the top stories, the headlines this morning. And we'll start from the Daily Asset. It leads with the story: Senate approves state police bill after manual voting process. The writers say governors will appoint commissioners under new security framework. Akpabio swears in 4 new senators after by-election. Those are the writers, and you'll find details of that story on page 2 of the paper. The Authority has the same story on its front page, and it headlines it this way: Senate passes state police bill with safeguard against governors' abuse. Moving on to this Nigeria, the paper looks at it this way: next stop, state assemblies. Senate passes historic state police bill. And of course, it is on several other papers. Looking at the Daily Sun first: Senate clears way for state police, passes bill. And the writers say retains emergency power with president. States to appoint police commissioners. Governors witness proceedings after initial resistance. The Daily Monitor also looks at it. Senate passes state police bill, empowers governors to appoint CPs. The writers say incorporates safeguards in bill aimed at protecting political freedoms, civil liberties. Kaduna governor allays fears of possible abuse of state police. Okay, let's go on to the next paper, which is the Standard Times. Senate passes bill to establish state police. Delay in passage has led to loss of many lives. That's Governor Sani being quoted there. All right. Away from that, let's look at how the Nigerian News Direct puts it this morning. Senate passes historic state police bill, swears in 4 new senators. That's the Nigerian News Direct. Now to go on to the Daily Trust. State police gains ground as Senate passes bill. And that story flows from the front page to pages 3 and 4 of the paper. Okay, moving on now to The Guardian. It leads with this story: from NPF to state forces, Senate clears path for state police, retains federal oversight guardrails. Page 6 of the paper is where you will find the details of that. And on the front page of the Vanguard, the story is headlined this way: Senate passes state police bill. It's now federal state police services. The page 26 is where you will find details of that. The writers say replaces NPF with federal state police services. Details tight safeguards against abuse by governors. Also on the front page of the Vanguard, before we go on to the next paper, we have that headline just below the picture story: anti-terror action. FG orders banks, others to freeze assets of terrorism financiers. All right, let's go to the leadership now, and its lead story there says state police closer to becoming reality as Senate passes bill. Page 4 is where you'll find the details. The writer says governors Wajabi Amila are present as 84 senators vote in support. At least 24 state legislatures must approve bill before presidential assent. Okay. Al Jazeera, Nigeria leads this way. State police, the eyes have it. As Senate passes landmark bill, okays governors to appoint CPs. The next paper we have this morning is the Observer's Times, and it leads with the story: Senate moves to stop governors from misusing state police. The writer to that story, to that headline, says limits state police to local jurisdictions, allows federal intervention under conditions. Okay, the next paper we have is GWG.NG, and it moves away from the state police story as it leads with a different headline. FG names 6 more terrorism financiers, and the story flows onto page 3 from the front page of the paper. Okay, going to the Nigerian pilot. It leads with the story: another terror group emerges. The writer says Kebbi State government raises alarm over emergence of new terror group. Say Malam reveals that the sect, first discovered in Zuru Emirate, was dislodged. Okay, let's move on to the Daily Global now. IGP raises alarm over rising killings of police officers nationwide. And to go to the Whistler, it leads with an economic story. U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Crude slump puts Nigeria's 1,200 naira per litre petrol price under scrutiny. Crude slump puts Nigeria's 1,200 naira per litre petrol price under scrutiny. And the writer says historical price dynamics peg PMS around 960 naira per litre. Trump orders probe into alleged U.S. gas price computing. The Daily Independent leads with a different story too. Of course, it is a financial story. And it says DMO ramps up domestic debt, raises 1.2 trillion naira via FGN bonds. And the writers say experts warn surging domestic borrowing poses massive fiscal risk. Say domestic borrowing surge threatens private sector lending. And of course, on the front page of that paper, you have all the headlines. But let's go to Chizoba's paper now, The Blueprint, which has a number of headlines on its front page. But if you take a look at the one just below the masthead to the left of the screen, it says FG commissions Lagos 505 kilowatt kilowatt P solar mini grid hails REA's drive. And there's a rider to it. Project a commitment to decentralized rural power. ABBA. Page 8 is where you find that story, the details. Now let's go to the other side of that front page. It says Nigerian, 2 others to die by hanging for terrorism. Mieti Allah leader Badejo to be docked over $2.530 million. Page 8 is also where you'll find that story. Now let's go and talk about these issues. Now I have the complete set of my reviewers in-house. Chizoba just joined us this morning. Good morning, Chizoba. It's good to have you.
A little late.
Yeah, the weather is a bit
challenging.
It's a wet morning in Abuja.
Really
it's still
wet.
raining as it is.
And it's picking up speeds.
It's picking up. So it was very heavy when I was on my way to the studio too, so it's completely understandable. But thank you for coming in all the same in spite of the inclement weather.
Thank you.
So let's take a look at the state police bill. I'll start with you, Chizoba. And the way your paper leads it, I'd like us to look at it. Your paper says, Senate passes state police bill, empowers governors to appoint CPs, and there's a rider there, provides safeguards against abuse. This is a much talked about bill. We've talked about state police on this program for more than 20 years. But now the Senate has passed the bill.
The act or the law setting up the state police will not be different from any other acts or law we have. It's about enforcement and implementation. Because it's one thing to have provisions in the Constitution, it's another thing to enforce it. Like some of the safeguards is about governors not arresting people for criticizing the government. But when you put it side by side with the Cybercrime Act, the likelihood that interpretation comes in and could also lead to people being arrested, because what's the guarantee that what is happening at the federal level or today will be different from what happens at the state level? Yes, you say governors can. What's the safeguard for stopping them from arresting? Because at the end of the day, when you arrest somebody, is the allegations or offenses or crime the person is supposed to have committed that matters. Yes, at the end of the day, you say the court to determine. But we've seen people being charged and released because they just wanted to put them through that. But that is even not the issue. It's about, one, these reps have passed, the senators concord. Now, the state assemblies, I think 2/3 of them need to also concur for it to become effective. There are a lot of other things to be set up for it to take effect. But, like I said, when the reps passed it, there's need for the lawmakers, for Nigerians to understand that it's not going to be, like they say, a silver bullet to solving the insecurity issues in the country so that they can manage their expectations. Because the implementation process is going to also take a while. Let's even give it like the former Deputy Senate President said in 10 days, that's Ike Kweremadu. Assuming the Houses of Assembly, No, former. Okay, former.
The former Senate.
Yes, I say former. President. He said it could be done in 10 days. Let's even take it for granted that the Houses of Assembly, they get the number they want in that 10 days. There's still a lot more to be done. And you know it's unlikely that in 10 days they will get that
because
vote.
The State Houses of Assembly are also going to read clause by clause.
Yes. And then
you need 24.
Assent. Yes, of the
minimum.
And you know, yesterday, one will ask, why were the governors there for the voting? Was it a situation of finding out if the legislators from their states were there? But it's not, it's a question for them to answer. So why is the stampede there? Yes, a lot of people say the state police is something that the time has come fine. But at the end of the day, the way we implement it, yes, some of the benefits we've been told that it will reduce time of response time. It could also build trust among the people, because expectedly there are people known to the state. But you know that even with the federal police, the recruitment is according to state. You're usually posted to your state, because that's why they come up with a figure, this number of people from this state apply for recruitment. So nothing much is actually going to change, because we also have the issue of residency versus indigenship.
Which could become a thorny issue.
Another issue. And when you have also the issue of balance, yes, we'll talk about Federal Character Commission, ensuring that in a state, one ethnic group or religious sect does not dominate, even if it's in a state.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
There are states in Nigeria that have several ethnic groups too.
But they still have one dominating. So how do you ensure? So there are a lot of things that need to still be taken into consideration before this properly takes off.
Chooks, what do you think? Because the way she has put it now, by the time the House, the National Assembly harmonizes the bill and it goes over to the states' houses of assembly, a lot of these things will come into play. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, as a human being, that's how I live my life. You see, if you have 10 problems and you solve one, you have 9 left. But at least you've solved one. You see, you cannot finish solving all the problems in this world. That's the truth. No matter how much laws you make, you know, even in countries like Switzerland that do not have armed forces, you know, there's still crimes there. You know, like somebody once told me that when you had only Cain and Abel in this world, there was terrorism. You understand? So that said, you know, I think people are always very skeptical about change. I worked in a media house where, when the proprietor of the media house wanted editors to start using computers, they actually went on strike. They protested. They know that they prefer to write. You know how we used to write longhand.
Longhand.
So people are always averse to. I knew when I bought my car, it was a Golf, and it was fuel injected, and people said no, that you can't use fuel injection.
It's better to use
carburetor.
Carburetor.
It's like that. You see, when people, even when James Stevenson invented locomotive, they passed the law in British, English Parliament that to stop him, because they said that the noise would make my hens will stop laying eggs. You know, that said, I like how News Direct and in this Nigeria put it. You know, they're historic. Because you see, if we do not know where we're coming from, it becomes difficult to know where we're going. Before 1966, we had regional police forces, especially we had 3 regions before. We had 3 regions. We had the Western region, we had the Eastern region, and we had the Northern region until 1963 when we added the Midwestern region. But we had the Native Authority Police Force in the north, and we had the local government police force in the west. So only the east retained they didn't have any, I mean, they allowed the federal police to move. Because, you know, the regions were very autonomous at the time. But we should not forget, after the first coup, a lot of issues came up. You understand? You know, when things happen, when you have a challenge, when there's a challenge, you look for a way to solve that problem. Then, you know, people say, okay, this is what happened. This is, you know, Gowon had to break Nigeria into 12 states, if you recall. They said that the regions were too powerful. So let's break it down to 12. That was why in 1967 they created 12 states.
12 states.
And so on and so forth. You know, the aim was to make the constituent states weaker and the federal stronger. The calculation was that if it became stronger, if the center became stronger, it becomes difficult for one region to wage war against the center, as happened.
Which eventually created another problem.
Exactly. So
some people are asking to go back to the regional.
No, it's historic now that after 60 years, you know, most presidents, even from 1999, most presidents didn't want that because, you know, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. You know, the stronger a president is, the easier it is for him to control the states. So we must give, you know, what I would like to do more now, we must give him the kudos for that because, you know, for an incumbent to want to whittle down his own powers, you know, it's not the norm in this part of the world. So now, states are going to get, I mean, when we have that problem, when we get to the bridge, we cross it. If we have the CPs from the states and governors are appointed. Because even now, I mean, let's face it, no matter what we say about You see, like, there's what Yoruba is called abosi. That's it's mischief. Is it mischief?
Yes, mischief.
Mischief. When Yoruba say abosi. When you say governor says that he has no control over the police now, he's just being clever by half. Because most states fund the police forces in their states. I mean, there's hardly any CP who don't take directive from the state governor. That's the truth. So even if governors want to abuse their powers now, they can. I know if any governor who wants to abuse his powers can. We've seen where the US, for instance, we've had someone like an Obama or a Biden who was president. And we've seen someone like a Trump who is president. So it depends on the psychology of the person. It depends on the mental makeup of the person. If a man who wants to be a tyrant no matter how you do it, he's going to be a tyrant because he has the powers. So it's a good, it's a good step. Let's take it. If we try state policing and it doesn't work, then we can also revert. Go back to central policing. There's no harm in trying.
Okay.
So, but like I tell you, the states, in a few days' time, from what I saw yesterday, still going to pass this law. And I'll tell you why. 81 or 83 senators passed that. The governors are there not because they are coming to. The governor does not have to be fiscally present at the National Assembly to make a senator vote. The governor can be in America. Of course, even if the senator votes or not, he'll get to know. So I think they just came there to show support or solidarity. They've always done that in time past. But Miller was Speaker of the House. Maybe these governors are in town. Let's go and see what they're doing. It's normal. It's what they do once in a while.
Okay. Now let's quickly take a few comments from those who are our viewers this morning, because they are also reviewing the papers with us as we are doing it. Ray Stroud says, if the Senate retains federal oversight, can we still call it state police? The problem isn't really in who controls the police. It's about sincerity of purpose. And let's look at Victor Temba. He says state police was debated and telecasted live on televisions. This is how democracy works. But when loans are being approved without debate or scrutiny, it raises many concerns. Chukwuemeka Agbo says whether they will abuse state police, sure, they will, but we cannot, because of that, reject it. Alfred Palmer says the same problems and inefficiencies that mar the federal police will face the state police. It's just common sense. All right. Ifako Chudi says, I will always support state police because I have heard of a case where bandits were arrested in one state and an order came from above that they be released. Let states manage their own security. The final one I'll take is from Alfred Palmer. If we fix the inefficiencies of our so-called federal police and other security outfits with sincerity, a lot of our insecurity issues will be resolved. Well, let me stop there and move on to another issue this morning, because our time is fast spent. When we're on the newspaper, the time
never get to know.
Just flies. Okay, so what other issues are we looking at? Let's take a look at the GWGNG's headline this morning. FG names 6 more terror financiers. Chizoba, was it yesterday morning that the U.S. named some BDCs and some individuals across Nigeria and Turkey and a few other places. And now we have the federal government coming out to name more terror financiers. How do you read this?
It's a commendable development. It's a welcome development. But beyond just naming and shaming, expectation is that these same people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and sanctioned to serve as a deterrent. Like we always say, if there's no deterrence, people are motivated to go into crime. And insecurity, particularly as concerns insurgency, terrorism, and banditry, whichever name we decide to call it, is something that the country has continued to battle with for more than 2 decades now. And there doesn't seem to be end in sight. So for the federal government to be taking the decisive step, we people have been calling for. You know what happened when Dubai listed some persons as terrorism financiers. The federal government was called out for not blacklisting them alongside the UAE and also ensuring that they were punished. So it's something that we hope that more, because for them to be thriving, certainly much more persons are involved. And we also look forward to a situation where people in government, because that keeps coming up, the issue of arms, they are armed. How do they bring the arm? They are enablers within the security agencies, allegedly, and the government. So we are looking forward to a situation where these people who are within, the enemies within, will also be fished out and punished.
Chooks, I want you to look at this headline and look at it from the prism, also through the prism, not just from that, but also through the prism with which Vanguard looks at it. It says, FG orders banks, others to freeze assets of terrorism financiers. And you have another story right there on that front page of the same paper, bar to criminals. You can run, but can't hide.
Yes.
So, looking at this, this is the first time.
In fact, I think no, let me not take the wind off the sail. I think there are 3 or 4 very interesting stories on crime and terror financing. I think GWG also has that.
Yes.
You know, yesterday, a court in Sokoto State sentenced 3 persons, including a Nigerian, to death.
That was part of the headlines.
Yeah, exactly. It happened. Then a few days ago, another court in Katsina sentenced a woman to death. Then one in Kogi. You know, in this month alone, we had like 5 or 6 sentences by courts, not military tribunals, by courts, sentencing people to death. You know, in Kogi, and all these people were arrested by the DSS. Look at what happened. There's also a case in hand, at hand. There's one factional Mieti Allah leader. It's a very serious matter.
Yeah,
Badejo. You see, how many million dollars?
$2.530 million in cash.
In cash. The man lived somewhere before Kefi. You understand? And when I read the story, it was mind-boggling. In fact, I understand that the EFCC could not arrest him, so they had to use sister security agencies to actually catch him. You know, if a man who has this is what they established, close to $3 million cash in his house. Such a man can even sack a government.
You can topple government.
You can topple government. You understand? Not in cash. There was an instance where they said 900. That was from the EFCC. $900,000 in cash. In some cases, 100,000. You know, $100,000 is already 140 million naira. You understand? In cash. So, and this money you can actually talk in your pocket, and you go and cause mayhem everywhere. But it's good because you see, like Children said something. When the previous government, when the government of UAE, helped us to list these, to list these terror financiers. I spoke about Abusi earlier on, mischief. The immediate past Attorney General pretended to be sleeping over the matter till his tenure lapsed. You know, he said, I dey come, I dey go, I dey go, I dey come, I dey come, I dey go, till he left office. But he said that now, look at the current Minister of Justice, Attorney General. Do you hear him talking?
No.
When you are arrested, you see that they come after you. Look at people that they are charging to court, the Attorney General's office, for terrorism financing. It's very clear. You see, where there's a will, there's always a way. So you see, if people get caught, look at what happened, the one that happened in Kogi that was sentenced to death. Because you talk about terrorism, insecurity. This man was the neighbor of a hotelier. Imagine, he was a neighbor of a hotelier in Obajana. They kidnapped this hotelier and made him pay 2.5 million. So because the man, the victim, they kidnapped him, because he spotted the man, they knew that after release, if he was set free, that they would come and kill him. I mean, that he will blow the whistle. So what happened? They killed this man. So most of the insecurity happening are local. In fact, there are things you cannot say on air, you understand? Because somebody just called me yesterday and said that even the one that happened in Nipskuru, a few days back, people said terrorists, there's suspicion that it was a robbery gone wrong. Somebody just called me, let's say, to tell me that. An insider, you understand?
So a lot of crime
so a lot
is
of
being
crimes, yes.
masked as terrorism.
It's actually worrisome, whether crime or what. There are a lot of our youths are involved in criminal activities, like I say, banditry, armed robbery, kidnapping and all. Because it looks like, yes, the security agencies and the military are making inroads, but it looks like they're playing a game of whack-a-mole. They take this off, another one springs off, and all of that. And there's reports in the media that a new terrorist group just emerged. I saw it say something that may say Malam. And you begin to wonder, to what end? We also need to ask, why are our youths taking to crime? It's a question we need to ask. Because if we keep killing them and we are not solving the root cause, the tendency that more will be springing up. And we're a country of over 200 million persons. So we're not lacking in people that
estimated.
Estimated, yes. So we're not lacking in people. So for the government, they need to also look at either reorientation of our
remote
people,
causes of
socialization
all of these
processes
issues.
and all. Remote causes of this issue.
All right, Chizoba, very quickly, we must go now. I have 1 minute left. And just this headline, crude slump puts Nigeria's 1,200 naira per litre price under scrutiny. That's
very interesting story.
Of the Whistler.
No,
I cannot let us go without
yes,
talking
very
about
interesting
that
story.
Very
Because
briefly.
you see, when the price increases, they say, oh, that because price has increased. But now there's slump. So why are we still buying petrol and diesel at this price? But they will tell you, no, yes, but they will tell you, the excuse they will give, they will tell you that they had old stock or something. But when they have old stock and crude prices rise, they don't wait to exhaust that stock. The very next day, they change. It's automatic. But they're always very unwilling.
When the price comes down. Yes. Okay. Chizoba, a final word.
And I think it's also a factor of monopoly, because there's actually no competition when it comes to this. It's like one person decides what the price is and it's the. But if there was competition and you have different, then probably the forces or the market forces will determine. But
monopoly is actually undemocratic.
Where it will go back to 800 that it was before this crisis, the Middle East crisis. US and Iran.
Because the crisis they are citing is now being resolved. So why is it still like that? Very beautiful story by the Whistler.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight this morning. I must thank you for even making it in this inclement weather. For both of you to have come here at this time of the day.
What did you say?
Yeah.
You said this weather for
you didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that. And I'm sure my microphones did not pick it. It's too early in the day to pick that kind of thing. I didn't hear that. Thank you so much. Have a great day. All right, I've been speaking with Chizoba Ogbeche, the deputy editor of the Blueprint newspaper, and Chuks Akuna, the executive director of the Authority newspaper, reviewing the top stories, the headlines on the front pages of Nigerian newspapers this morning on the newspaper review segment of Kakaaki, the African Voice. We'll come back after this break to begin with our first conversation. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Raypower Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real Real Talk, political platform, now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us, Kakaaki, the African Voice, reaching you live from the Abuja studios of AIT. This morning, it's time for us to go into our first conversation, looking at politics and the environment. Now, it's the run-up to the 2027 elections, and the campaign promises come from all political parties and their candidates. But rarely do you hear anyone talk about the environment. People talk about, oh, we'll give you infrastructure, we'll give you water, electricity supply will improve, we'll solve the problem in 6 months. We've had all kinds of promises from candidates of political parties aspiring to political office. But it's rare to hear anyone talk about the environment and what they intend to do about the emerging issues and, of course, the current ones that are going on, the flooding, for instance. And that's why we're looking at politics and the environment this morning. My guest is retired Air Vice Marshal Akugbe Yamu, who is the president of the Association of Environmental Protection and Climate Change Practitioners. AVM, thank you for joining me. Good morning.
Thank you once again, and thank you for the long effort. Really wonderful.
Well, let's start with a global perspective on environmental issues. As I read the news this morning, the whole of Europe, about 350 million people, which is more than half the population of Europe, will have to endure serious heat. People are rushing to buy air conditioners in Europe now, a place where ordinarily you wouldn't need air conditioners. And 35 degrees Celsius, that's what France is experiencing sometimes of the day. Now, there are flood alerts across the world. What exactly is going on? The world is struggling to come to terms with the extreme weather conditions that we're experiencing now.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just came back from Canada now. You see what the weather is doing there, the heat and everything. Now, across the globe, only two things have taken on a life of its own, long time, life of its own: war and climate change, I mean environmental degradation. Now, they're taking on a life of its own because the structure that the global community has built is no longer sufficient to deal with these very issues. And that is why any country that is not looking at it in that particular direction is in a very literal form mortgaging the future of its generation. Now, you see, the world has made predictions. Climate change has become an issue that is multidimensional, and it is challenging leadership, which you just explained, challenging leadership across the world. And any leader that does not understand it is going to pay very, very dearly for it. When we come in here, this is the peak window for election, and incidentally, it's also the peak window for climate change and for the weather, that is March to September. Now, it is time to test the candidate. From the way the election campaign has been going, it's very low on ideas. It's very low on ideas. Now, you see that we are discussing every other thing except nation building. We're discussing it's much more personal, much more. There's no really issue how you are going to define things moving forward. Now, that's when we now begin to ask the candidates: do you just want to be in office, or you want to bring your messages to come and align with the institutions to deal with the current challenges that we're having? Because you cannot deal with climate change alone, because climate change has exposed all the bad habits of our own behavior. Because people are now claiming that, okay, because of the bad economy, that's why we are behaving the way we are behaving. No, what are you going to do? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do? Because the peak window now, at the peak window of climate change, there has to be a conversation around the condition that we are in now. And we're not seeing any of that. It's so low on idea. So low on idea, and I must say yes.
I said in my intro, in my initial comments, that we rarely hear political actors speaking about the environment. Is it because they don't understand it? Or is it because they simply do not think it's important enough? Or that the environment is just there and we can do nothing about it?
Yes, like I told you, I said two things have taken on a life of its own in the last century. That is war and environment. Whatever plan you are making, if you are going for a campaign and the Israel, will you do it? You will not do it. So even in war, when you are planning for it, the weather is very, very significant. The weather is very significant. Apart from that, you see, if the physical environment is the mother of everything that you are talking about. I want to give you an example, what the environment has given to us, and we are now going to deal with it. Take the case of the IDP. I will just be talking on maybe three aspects. That is the ecological fund and the IDPs. Then I will also touch on the Abuja situation. Take the case of the IDP. We have 3.7 million IDPs in Nigeria. And the spread is this. Borno, you have 1.7. Benue, you have 464,000. Then in Zamfara, you have 280,000. In Adamawa, you have 219,000 people. And in Sokoto, you have 119,000 people. These are Nigerians who through no circumstances of their own, have been put in that particular situation. And why? Because the situation that created that, you did not deal with it adequately. The election conversation, the window now should have been dealing with how do you relocate these IDPs to their homes? How do you bring them back? That's the question that we should be asking. And in all of this one, and the agriculture and everything is distorted. Everything is distorted. And how do you feed them? There's no state-sponsored treatment to them. There's no state-sponsored shelter. There's nothing. They are just there, year in, year out. A child that was a child that had been in IDP camp since 2012. How old is he now? He knew no life. So he does not have any stake in nationhood. I understand the other of your guests talking about how do we call people joining the insurgency. You cannot deal with the environment alone or deal with every other aspect, the insurgency, without dealing with climate change. Because it's climate change in some of the instances, the insurgency is a contestation for resources, which we are saying now, contestation for resources. So if you have a child who has been in an IDP camp and no other life, so how are you going to control him? He doesn't have a school, he doesn't have hospital, he doesn't have anything. All he knows is just grow. Every morning he wakes up and into the following life. Then, go ahead.
I'm sure it was still raining when you drove
here
this morning.
Yes.
And I'm looking at flooding as one item that for years we've struggled with in Nigeria. Now, NEMA has listed 11 local government areas in Niger State alone as high-risk areas. Of course, you know the kind of state that Niger is. Niger State has dams, has a lot of tributaries of the river Niger, and the main river itself flows through Niger State. And so the flood alert that will affect 198 local governments across 32 states in Nigeria has 11 local governments in Niger State alone included. How? Because we're looking at politics and the environment. And for someone, for instance, who wants to be maybe a senator in one of the 32 states that have been given these alerts, what kind of education do they need concerning the environment, and what kind of thinking should inform their electioneering campaign when they are speaking to people, because a lot of these people have been displaced time and time and time again by flooding.
See, flooding is not new to us. Like I told you, it has become a structural problem. And the key areas where it is more devastating, I already know, Niger, Lokoja, Adamawa, and the rest of them. See, like I said, the campaign has been very low on issues and low on ideas. We are not dealing with the substantial issues. We're dealing with very mundane things. Anybody who is going to vie for governorship or senator in states like Niger State should be telling the people, how are you going to deal with the ecological challenges that are there? I mentioned the word ecological challenges now. Now, you come to what do you have? You need resources if you have to deal with the ecological problem. Now, if you are relocating them, elsewhere, in other climes, what they do is that they already know these people. The stress test has already been done. It is known that, look, as so this window, these environmental windows, it's already known. At this period, we are going to state-sponsored shelter, state-sponsored movement, and state-sponsored everything. They move you out and say, okay, remain here while the flood takes over, because there's very little you can do. One thing is that there are no portable solutions in all of this. It takes investment. It takes investment. It has to be scalable. It has to translate wishes to capacities. Now, this takes me to ecological fund. You see the ecological fund, very, very controversial. Now, since 1981, when the Okigbo Commission came up with the ecological fund, it was 1%. Now, that was President Shehu Shagari. President Ibrahim Babangida moved it to 2%. Along the way, in 1985, they set up the commission to manage it because of the controversy in transparency and accountability. Coming to 1992, we moved to 2%. And President Obasanjo moved it to 3%. Then 1% is on derivation. And to effectively manage it, in the last decade, then a new map was set up. I'm sure you have heard of new map. That's Nigeria Erosion Management Program. Now, what is still the problem? Accountability and transparency and competency. That's why all these things have been set up. It's a World Bank managed project that is there. You see, these ones, all these interventions are supposed to deal with the environment. Now, that's why we are saying that, look, anybody that is campaigning now, we're just making noise. And the environment, where the two peak periods are colliding and coinciding. What are you going to do about it? Because whatever you have planned in all of this can be wiped off in a day. Because the starting point, we have written to the National Assembly, written to the Ministry of Environment, and written to the SGF office to say that, look, the Constitution, Section 20, on which we base on our response to the environment is too weak. It's too weak. Section 20 is just there that states shall take care of land, water, and air. It is not justiciable. We want it to bring it to action. If it is not justiciable, it is just hanging there for nothing. We are talking of flooding, talking of Niger State. Niger State have Mokwa, and Mokwa issue have not been extensively dealt with and put away. Talk about the Federal Capital Territory. Now, what we are going to experience in the Federal Capital Territory, when you create, where people were living in peace, and you come through action, through very reckless action, you create fear, and you create uncertainty through your action, it becomes a problem.
How do you mean?
Now, Abuja was created as a purpose-built city. Purpose-built city. Purpose-built city means that it does not start from anything. It started from a virgin land. It's not an organic city where you say you met some people and you are going to build on them. No, this is a purpose-built city. Now, here you had, at the inception, they said 40% of this land must be green areas. They know why, because you live in a trough. You live in a trough. And this trough have a way of influencing your climate. And when you disturb this 40%, you have set up a mini climate that you cannot control. You cannot control in health, you cannot control in destruction, you cannot control in everything. Now, when the FCDA become very reckless in destroying the environment, the section 20 of the Constitution is not enough to hold them responsible. It's not enough, because you cannot go to court on that issue to say that the state is supposed to protect the environment. No, because it's not justiciable. What the National Assembly is relying on is Section 60 of their law to set up agencies like NESRA. But we have impressed on the National Assembly to say, look, make Section 20 justiciable so that an individual or an entity cannot just come and put the whole of our lives in jeopardy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So if you see now, the Niger, Adamawa, and all of them is going to be very serious. But that of Abuja is going to take on a new life that people don't know before. Look at the way the rain falls now. The rain can be falling in Asokoro, very heavy, and you will not have it in Apo. So you have set up a mini...
Let me shock you. The rain falls here on Paduma Hill, and it doesn't get to Tiwai Danjuma.
Very heavy. You have set up you see, you have a resting environment. You have gone just out of whatever reason to disrupt it, and now this is what you have given to us now. Jahi don't know flood before. You know there's already flooding. Utako does not know flooding before. Yeah, there's already flooding now. So this is where now people that are canvassing, the senator that is here, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to restore the environment that has already been decimated? The carbon sink areas have been given out, have been destroyed. Go to Canada. Since last time I went there, you see, Canada, the US, and all the environment, they are green areas. They would rather you commit any other offense than to go and touch their green areas. So, like I have said, as this electionary campaign at this peak window, we want the National Assembly to take a look at Section 20 and make it justiciable. Yes.
Well, you've talked about the severe risk of flooding that the FCT is facing, and that spreads to 26 other states as well. But when we look at all of these things, what are your expectations from the people who are in government now? Let's not even talk about politicians who are seeking office. The people in government in those 26 states and the FCT. Because if the FCT, Abuja is in a trough, like you said, and the green areas are being taken up, there is an increased risk of not just flooding, because with flooding comes opportunistic problems and consequences, because you cannot close your eyes to those ones and just say, let us treat flooding. So what do you expect from people who are in political office right now? Chairman of local governments, the senator representing each of those senatorial districts across the 26 states, and even their governors.
Yes, thank you very much. You see, it is very difficult for a central agency to go and deal with issues in the subnational, because the issue of the environment happens in the cultural environment, in the local environment, and everything. So the subnational government should be very active now. See, election can only have meaning if the people, you take them out of fear. You need a framework now. You need a framework that will say, look, guys, don't be afraid. Should anything happen, there will be a state-sponsored intervention that will move you out of this place. There have to be a structure. See, there is nothing like a round structure, a prepared structure. No. It is an institution. It is an institution that, with continuous investment, like I told you, flooding in Nigeria is not a structural problem. When you say a structural problem, it means. When you say a structural problem, it means that whatever facility you have is not able to take care of the consequences that it's bringing. Now they have to scale up. They have to scale up those particular interventions that they are making now. Now, look, going to give rice, going to give beans at the end of the day, is not a strategy. It's not a policy.
Relief materials.
Eh?
I said relief materials.
Relief materials. It's not a policy. The policy now is that get the people saved, get them alive.
Now, AVM, I want us to look at something else. Nigeria stands to generate substantial revenue from the global carbon market now. And why shouldn't we be talking about that even more as a nation? Because it's a place where we cannot, it's not just about articulating our issues, but also getting benefits for crimes against the environment, I would call them.
You see, you get benefit from crime against the environment when you yourself you are setting up the crime. When you setting up the crime, see, Abuja as a purpose-built city was a model for us to engage climate financing. You see, what you have is you have carbon credit, you have carbon offset, you have climate financing. These three are very, very consequential. Countries like South Africa are making a kill out of this whole thing. Carbon credit is very, very pivotal because that way you have a certificate to be able to draw carbon out of the air, either by prevention or by outright removal. And that is very key. Now, don't forget that we still have about 4% of the untouched forest in the world. Which you can use to canvas for most of these things. Now, carbon offset. Nigeria have, that's mitigation and adaptation. What you use to prevent it or what you use to live with it. Nigeria have one of the best adaptation laws in the world. It's resting in the cooler. How do you activate this to get the money? Then climate financing. You are talking of money from international institutions, private agencies, and all. It is not a Father Christmas. They don't dole it out. You must perform some actions. And the one that we are doing in FCT now is certainly not part of it.
What about Nigeria as a whole?
Well, Nigeria as a whole, like I told you, I say environmental degradation is where most of our inner action hides. Because everybody now is relying on a very, very bad economy to do a lot of destruction. We have to have a reorientation. Any campaign now that is going on have to say, look, in the local environment, since climate change is quite local, how do you reorient these people? You see, campaign now should deal with it. It is a time for retooling. It is a time for resetting politics. It is a time for merging dreams with reality. With
the realities.
And the climate is actually one of them, very fundamental.
All right, it's a good place to leave it this morning. Thank you very much. Air Vice Marshal Iyamu, retired. Thank you for your time. We've been talking about politics and the environment here in the studio with retired Air Vice Marshal Akugbe Iyamu, who is the president of the Association of Environmental Protection and Climate Change Practitioners. He was at the time acting Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency as well here in Nigeria. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the good job you are doing.
All right, we'll take a break on Kakaaki, the African Voice. When we come back, it will be time for Kakaaki Social. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X. X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. The conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political platform, the hard-hitting, no-holds-barred program you have trusted on Ray Power Radio is making a powerful move to television. Tune in to Africa Independent Television, AIT, as political platform debuts on your screen, bringing deeper analysis, sharper debates, and the voices shaping our nation's future right into your screens. From policy and politics breakdowns to real-time discussions with key stakeholders, this is more than a program. It is where opinions are tested, truths are uncovered, and the people's voice is heard. Join seasoned hosts and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
The issues as they break, the multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our government seem to be incapable of protecting
the scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go.
Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection.
I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Hello everyone, good morning to you. This is Kakaaki Social. I am Onoshorena Obozege. You're welcome to this side of the program. What exactly is going on the space of social media? We will begin from where our second conversation will pick up this morning, which is that the Senate has passed the State Police Bill. A key concern during deliberations was the possibility of governors abusing state police powers. And to address this, the bill expressly prohibits governors from using state police to harass political opponent, suppress dissent, or pursue partisan, ethnic, religious, sectional, or personal interests. The legislation also provides for federal intervention in cases of public order breakdown, human rights abuses, electoral intimidation, or threats to national security. And in any of these cases, such intervention must be authorized by the president and communicated to relevant authorities. Under the proposed framework, states can establish their own police services through legislation, but only after meeting national standards set by the National Assembly, plus governors are empowered to appoint commissioners of police in their various states. Let's now see how you reacted to these on the floor of the Senate. We'll cross over to the comment section. Tife03 will start this morning. He says, I only hope this works and doesn't create more problems. There would be conflict of responsibilities between the federal police and state police, and that's something that needs to be carefully managed. I also hope state police won't become corrupt and end up focusing on chasing Yahoo boys everywhere instead of tackling serious crime and improving security. In another reaction, Omonija says, best move against insecurity yet. Everybody knows their neighbor. Accountability moves closer to the people. Corrupt officers should watch their backs. No more hiding behind Abuja while security votes disappear. Nigeria is moving forward. More thought Abdul says, They are already using the police to rig elections in their favor. Imagine the level of electoral irregularities we would likely face now that the governors are empowered to appoint commissioners of police. And final thought to this story will be from this user, that_woman's son. And it says, as the security issue don't affect everybody, them rush past this one quick, without setting up any committee. And his 2 fingers up, he says, peace up. All right. In another story, the federal government has announced the discovery of significant deposits of platinum and lithium in Kaduna State, describing the development as a major boost for Nigeria's solid mineral sector and economic diversification effort. We have the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, saying that this discovery highlights the country's growing potential as a key player in the global minerals market, particularly as demand rises for critical minerals used in clean energy, technologies, and industrial manufacturing. And it's one that would reduce dependence on crude oil. And that is the good news coming from the state government. All right, let's bring you in. If this is good news for you too. Izuwa Udochukwu says, Nigeria is definitely blessed. Do you know that the PGM is the most expensive metal in the world? Price of rhodium is more than double the price of gold, and it's in high demand. Congratulations to the Minister of Mines and Nigeria government. Robert Nigeria says they didn't discover any. It has always been there, and they have been mining it illegally for decades without remitting any dime to the Federation's account, making it look like a new discovery is not just deceptive, but also criminal. More thoughts to this, still coming from X Young Ichu says, does it sound like a good news? For me, I doubt. A few Nigerians will sit on this and milk the resources for their personal and private use. Sadly, everyone will be okay with it and move on. But of great concern is this final user who is talking about next line of action, and that's Mazi Mba. It says, fund your bandits to come and attack the area consistently so the inhabitant of those areas will flee, giving you space for your operations, whomever it may concern. Mazi Mba's thought right there. From that, we go to Kebbi South Senator Garuba Maidoki that has warned that the greatest threat to Nigeria's democracy right now may come from the military, but he says it would not come from the military, but from ordinary citizens who are frustrated by worsening economic hardship and governance challenges. The lawmaker expressed concern over growing public dissatisfaction, cautioning that failure to address the needs of Nigerians could erode confidence in democratic institutions as well as fuel instability. He also faulted what he described as overlapping budget provisions while talking about the amended Electoral Act and how fathers and mothers use them to bring in their choices.
3 years since Tinubu's government, 3 years. 2024, 2025, and now 2026, the budget has not been implemented. He has never implemented a budget. And we have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. Where is the money we are borrowing? All the revenue generating agencies in this country told us they have exceeded their target. Where is the money going? If anybody is telling President Tinubu, I have utmost respect for him as a nationalist, as a gentleman. If anybody is telling him all is well, it's lies. Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are complaining. You will agree with me that what they call primary and consensus is not limited to APC alone. In almost all the political parties, it's just an arrangement where kingmakers put their stooges to the detriment of ordinary Nigerians.
All right, let's see how you're reacting to this coming from AIT's Facebook page where we had shared that story. Adamu Awal says, please, can somebody from Kebbi Angle verify whether this senator get his return ticket? And from there, we started seeing reactions. Let's see what the next user says. Felix says, just because the senator didn't get a return ticket back to the Senate, has suddenly realized that Nigeria president is not implementing his budget. How wish he got the returning ticket back to the Senate in Kebbi State, he would not have been speaking like this. And he's laughing out loud. Then we have Agada Sunday where he said, when you were all busy endorsing everything, now they don't break. But Tony Patrick says the truth still remains that he's saying the truth. So whether he's returning or it looks like he's angry and that's why he's talking tough right now, he's saying the truth according to the last user on AIT online on Facebook. To the courts now, we have the Federal High Court in Abuja that has declined a request to release African Action Congress presidential candidates for 2027 and, of course, their serial presidential candidate, Omoyele Sowore, to his lawyers pending the hearing of applications challenging the revocation of his bail. Sowore's legal team had urged the court to set aside its June 16 order revoking his bail and issuing a bench warrant for his arrest, while also seeking the restoration of his previous bail conditions. Following argument from both the defense and the prosecution, the court adjourned the matter until June 30 for ruling on all pending applications. So right now, Sowore was subsequently escorted back to the Kuje Correctional Center, and he will be there some more days until June 30, when this matter will be revisited.
Peace. Una won't follow and go peace. Una won't follow and go peace. DSS. Una follow and go peace now. Yes, sir. See to the toilet. They gather around. This place in the toilet. See the way they gather around. For toilet too.
All right, let's see how you're reacting to this. Kenny says, when has it been a crime to insult a sitting president? And by the way, that's the problem right there and why he's in court, that he called President Tinubu unprintable names. So Kenny says, when has it been a crime to insult a sitting president? The USA president was even named after a cow. Every day he's been insulted, even in public. Nobody has arrested anybody. France, England, all government officials are insulted on a daily basis. Nigeria is gone. Nigerians are not ready. That's Kenny talking there. For Henry, he says, what point is this Sowore trying to make? If it is activism, what is he really fighting for? If he wants to be the president of Nigeria, it is best to just join a political party and contest like every other candidate. Some of us are tired of everyday headlines about him. Well, is AAC not a political candidate to you? For this user, it says, federal government wasting time with an individual when lots of kidnappers and terrorists are having fun up and down. And for Mazi then, I'll start from the last user, Deco, who says, imagine a presidential candidate going to the prison. What if it does not come out till after the election? How it will come be? Then Mazi up there had said Doris Ogala should be warming up to become the presidential candidate. And by the way, Doris is the governorship candidate for Sowore's party, AAC, in Abia State. So Abia State Governor Alex Otti is about to have a run for his money. And finally, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has commissioned the newly completed Karo Water Supply Network, and that's a project that is designed to provide potable water for communities in the Karo area of Abuja. Now, during the event, the minister was offered a glass of water that was sourced from the facility, but he did not drink from it. However, Vice President Kashim Shettima drank some. The moment expectedly has gained reactions. The Karo Water Supply Network is expected to improve access to clean water for residents and forms part of ongoing effort by the FCT administration to expand critical infrastructure and public services in the area. But that part that Wike refused to drink from that water is what is trending. Let's see.
The first cup from the Power Water project is being taken by the President.
All right, let's see what you think and your reactions. Ola Michael says the vice president innocently drinks from the water, while the one who invited him for the commissioning dodged the bullet. He calls that water bullet. If they tell you we are watching your back, open your eyes widely. In another thought, Filio says at least PDP pretended to love the masses, especially during elections, by eating corn and frying akara. But you see these, them no send anybody. More thought to this one. Hector says, until both the masses and public office holders use the same hospitals, drink the same water, use the same power source, and put their children in the same school, until then Nigeria will not become better. And here we have this user, grandpa being grandpa indeed. He attached this picture. Is this an ape or a human being? I'm not sure, but painted this way. And it says, I beg, na palm one borehole them open there. I've been an eye, they pain me. And netizens had reacted to this way. The water is not watering. No, it looks like it's palm one that is there. And those are your thoughts and reactions to some of the stories trending on the space of social media this minute. Thanks a bunch for being a part of it. I'm Rena Obio. We'll see you again tomorrow. The program continues after now.
No worries, let's go make am. Mogo Bible.
Victor, even you, they use money point?
Of course now, they use money points.
Confirm.
Money point, made for your progress.
Every day, across forests, highways, towns, and villages, brave men and women stand watch so that Nigeria can sleep. They leave their families behind, confront danger head-on, and make sacrifices many of us will never see. Yet, the enemies of our nation continue their assault. They target our children. They murder innocent citizens. They force families from their homes. They turn thriving communities into places of fear and uncertainty. Their goal is simple: to break our spirit, divide our people, and steal the future of our nation. But Nigeria is stronger than terror. As we demand greater accountability, stronger security measures, and more effective action from those entrusted with our safety, we must also play our part. Support our security forces, salute their gallantry, stand with those who stand for us. If you see something, say something. Let us be our brother's keeper. We must never surrender to fear, despair, or hopelessness. This is not the time for division, not by tribe, not by religion, not by region, not by political party. Because terror recognizes no ethnicity, no faith, and no ideology. Its enemy is all of us. And together, united as one people, we can defeat it. For our children, for our communities, for our future, for Nigeria. Join the movement. Stand for our country. Stand for one another. Hashtag Unite Against Terror.
The FIFA World Cup 2026 is here. Watch all 104 matches live on StarTimes, from the opening match to the final showdown.
And this time, it's not just watching, it's watch and win.
Subscribe or buy a StarTimes decoder and stand a chance to win the 10 million naira grand prize, plus many exciting prizes nationwide, with subscription packages starting from just 4,000 naira. Recharge now via StarTimes app or visit any StarTimes office or dealer outlet near you.
StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Nigeria has survived everything, not because we are lucky, but because in the hardest moment, when the news breaks and the grief is raw, someone somewhere makes a choice.
To confirm before spreading panic, to empathize rather than assign blame, to hold when everything inside said, poof.
For terrorism is not only the attack that sparks our outrage. Terrorism is also the choices that follow, the ones that feed division and erode the bonds of nationhood and patriotism that hold us together as Nigerians.
Let us choose to defeat terror, one division at a time. Take a pause. Choose Nigeria.
Let's all unite against terror.
Thank you so much for staying with us. You are watching Kakaaki, the African Voice, and of course we're going into our second conversation of the day right now. Well, newspaper review, Kakaaki Social, one topic has dominated discussion in all of these segments of the program, and that has to do with the state police bill, which was passed by an emergency session of the Nigerian Senate on Wednesday. So, state governors are empowered to appoint a commissioner of police subject to the confirmation of the State House of Assembly and a host of other guidelines that have been included in the framework for state police in Nigeria. Joining me this morning to talk about it is Senator Patrick Abba Moro, who is the senator representing Benue South Senatorial District. Good morning, distinguished senator. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we have gotten to a point where, like one of my reviewers said on the newspaper review, a journey of more than 20 years has now culminated in the passage of this bill. But one thing that gives people a little bit of concern is the speed with which the bill was passed. Can you explain what the hurry was about? Because people are worried that there may not have been enough scrutiny of the provisions of that bill.
Well, I want to let you know that maybe because persons have not been watching the proceedings of the Senate, especially as concerns this state police bill. The state police bill is part of the constitutional amendment, the constitutional review or alteration. And the Senate had gone around all the zones of this country, you know, putting forward items that are included in the constitutional review process. And the only difference at this moment is that the Senate has not waited for the gamut of items that are included in the constitutional review process. Things like state creation, things like authoring the Constitution to provide for this and that and the rest of them, because of the fierce urgency of the moment, that security continue to exacerbate rather than abating. Insecurity has become a daily occurrence. Killing of individuals, farmer-header clash, kidnapping, and the rest of them. All of them have, necessitated a need to have a reviewed security architecture of this country. And one of it is the clamor by state governors, who are the chief security officers of their various states, for the establishment of a state police. And so what the Senate and the House of Representatives has just done is to extract that aspect for the establishment of a state police and treat it, because of the need for security in their various domains. If I tell you now that I am not an advocate of a state police, because I have several concerns about it, the issue of abuse of use, because we have seen what the state independent electoral commissions are doing with elections in local government. If you look at the fact that until recently, when more funds have become available to the states have been unable to pay salaries of workers of their various states. And so these are some of the concerns that some of us had, and we say, look, we are not ripe right now for state police. But things continue to escalate, things continue to exacerbate, and we now say, okay, fine, let's sort of address these concerns that we have about state police. Otherwise, in other civilized climes, like America, like UK, you have metropolitan police, you have county police, you have state police, and the rest of them. They are there, you know. So what this Senate has done actually is picking out this item that is necessary at this moment in time, especially with the approach of elections. Let's expand the security architecture of Nigeria. I am for community policing, for instance. But if community policing is not viable now, or it's not possible now, then the next level is the state police. And because the governors are the chief security officers of their various states, you saw the number of governors that came yesterday to witness the process of amending that aspect of the Constitution. And so it is not just that we woke up from the wrong side of the bed and decided that we should attend to this bill right now. It has been in the process.
Okay,
and,
but there are a number of things that I would like us to look at. You mentioned just now that initially part of the issues that stoked opposition to state police was the issue of funding, because many state governments were owing salaries of civil servants. And these are issues because, frankly, on this program, we've discussed state police for more than 20 years with different people. Olashukwu Ojo, Femi Falana, Innocent Chukwuma, may so rest in peace, Bamidele Aturu, mention them. Okay. All of them activists, lawyers, and even the late Bekoran Kuti talked about it at some point with us on this program. And one of the key issues that they've talked about, we'll get to that later, but I want you to talk about the funding now, because you said that one of the issues is that the states may not be able to afford the funding that will be required for state police. So what has changed now? Well, are the states able to afford it now?
What has changed really is the fact that there's more money now. In those days, when we were raising some of these concerns and when salaries were not paid and the rest of them, the FAC was distributing 700 million, 700 billion, and the rest of them to states and local governments and the federal government. But right now, as at the last count, we had FAC distributing 2.6 trillion naira. And so, like I said in the beginning, more funds are now available to the states. And having passed this bill, the next level that we are going into now is to provide for the State Police Act. The State Police Act will definitely define the modalities of funding of the State Police Service Commission to take care of the people that are going to be recruited into the state police services of the various states.
Okay. Now, I'm going to come back to that issue of recruitment and how the law will make that. Was there any opposition to the bill at all on the floor of the Senate?
All through the process of voting yesterday, because the requirement for amending the Constitution is that 2/3 of the senators present, elected senators, should approve. Mm-hmm. So we went clause by clause, up to 26 clauses of that bill. And constantly there was a senator who said he was opposed to state police. So if you have access to the votes and proceedings of the Senate, you will discover that consistently on all the clauses, that single senator insisted that he was opposed to state police. Okay. But the rest of the senators, 85, 87, as the case may be, acceded to the request for the establishment of state police.
Okay, now, one critical thing that many people spoke about in their opposition to state police in the past was the fact that it was open to abuse by governors. Now, some safeguards have been inserted into the constitutional amendment, which prohibits governors from arresting individuals for criticizing the government, the kind of thing that we saw on Kakaaki social a moment ago, happening to Omoyele Sowore, the candidate, the presidential candidate of the AAC. So, do you think that provision is enough to allay the fears of all of the people who are worried that state police could become a tool of oppression in the hands of governors?
I think for the moment, extraordinary situations require extraordinary solutions. Yes, we have fears, but like you have rightly noted, some caveats have been inserted into the law, into the bill, to make sure that the state police is not abused, maybe like the state independent electoral commissions. And there is also a caveat requiring the president, in consultation with the Federal Police Commission, to intervene in states where for political, for religious or ethnic reasons, or tribal reasons, state governors decide to deploy state police against perceived opponents. And so at that level, there is also a proviso that the National Police Service Commission should set the standards, minimum standards, within which the police of the states will act. And to that extent, we want to believe that if national standards are set, and there is a provision that in conjunction with the National Assembly, the National Police can intervene in states where perceived abuse is seen. And so I think generally the fear of abuse by state governors of the state police services is allayed by the provisions preventing that. And don't forget that a law is a live document, it's a live issue. And so constantly, as we move on, it is expected that if there are loopholes in the current law now, which we may not see right now, then in future, when such things rear their heads, then the National Assembly, as provided in that law, should be able to intervene.
All right. Okay, let's welcome James Ugochukwu, who is just joining us now. James is the Regional General Secretary of the West African Civil Society Forum. He's also joining us to weigh in on the passage of the State Police Bill by the Senate. Thank you very much, James, for coming in. I hope the weather didn't disturb you too much.
We are used to it.
Okay. Now, the bill has been passed. The House of Reps has passed it. The Senate passed it yesterday. And the process is going on, concurrence, and of course, sending it to the state houses of assembly for their own work on it before it gets back to the president. How did you receive the news of the passage of that bill?
You know, when the House of Reps passed it, I was worried that the Red Chamber will start having issue with the bill, or maybe they will reject it. But I'm so glad that they did pass it eventually. And of course, I must commend President Tinubu. I'm not a spokesperson, but when the president do the right thing, I think we should commend him for taking the bull by the horn to carry out this much needed reform. The state police issue has been on for several decades, if I may say. You know, right from the time they decentralized, you know, we normally have regional police before the military made it.
Oh yes, in the First Republic,
federal
we had local police.
And over time, there has been clamor to return to state police. Obasanjo tried it; the thing couldn't fly. The Constitutional Conference in 2014, they tried it; it didn't fly. State government and all of that, they clamor for it. And I think the reason why this thing is gaining traction is because of this high level of insecurity. So, and I really want to commend the president for taking this much needed step, you know, by sponsoring it as an executive bill. And of course, you know, in the legislature, most time, if there's a executive bill, it passes quickly than if it's membership bill or from any other source. So I think it's a welcome development, and it's something that all Nigerians should lend their support to. I've been hearing several commentaries about the advantages and disadvantages of it and all that, and we can put it that there's nothing that doesn't have advantage and disadvantage. Even we as human beings, we have our own disadvantage and disadvantage right there in our family. Talk more of any other system. And just as the distinguished senator has said, human beings are adaptive. By the time by the time the president assent to it and it's passed as law and the state houses of assembly endorses it and all that, over time we'll find our time to be reforming it anywhere there is need for it.
To panabate it, okay. Now, one of the key issues, I'm staying with you, James, one of the key issues that always came up when the debate about state police arose in the past, over the decades, is the propensity or the likelihood of state governors to abuse the state police by using it to harass political opponents or victimize people who they just don't, maybe just don't like somebody. Maybe I don't like James's face and I'm governor. I can say, go and detain him for the next 1 year. And the Senate has placed some safeguards which prohibit governors from arresting people for criticizing them or turning the state police into a tool of oppression. Do you think that's enough?
I think the issue of the state government using the police apparatus to harass people is a very pedestrian argument, in the sense that most Nigerians are oppressive by nature. You know, you see you having an altercation with somebody, I will tell you I will lock you up. You lock somebody up just like that. So it has nothing to do with the state government, and it's not every state government that abuse that kind of opportunity or power. So for the fact that the senators have put it, or the National Assembly has, enshrined that in the provision, gives it a very better pedestal for people to at least have some level of trust or confidence in the system. But I want to tell you that it shouldn't be a reason for us to be arguing, because whether it's federal police or state police, we've seen the executive use federal police, even individuals, powerful individuals. We've seen it all over the social media. They go and pick somebody up and lock up the person and all that. I think what we should be looking at is the reorientation of both the people in power and the civil populace, so that citizens will know the provision of this act, where their rights lies and how they can seek redress in the face of oppression. But using that as a reason to jettison the good job is something that I'm not a party to. So abuse, yes, some people will make attempt to abuse it, but are there remedies to that? Yes, it's already in the police bill as it is. So it's behoves of the citizen now to study the document very well. I know the gray areas where they can seek redress in face of such oppression.
Now, Senator, let me come back to you. Before James joined us, we were talking about funding for the state police. When you think about funding and you think about states and you think about security, the three of those three words in the same sentence, you immediately think about security vote. Now, will security vote be sufficient to fund state police, or is there some fresh thinking in that direction?
Well, the security vote will still be there, no doubt about it, but security vote definitely will not be enough to fund the state police. And like I said in the beginning, a follow-up to the state police bill is a bill that is coming forth to provide for the details, the operational details of the state police. And one of it is, like you said, funding. Proposals are already coming in as to how to fund. Some people have suggested funding from the consolidated fund of the Federation, which will also require an amendment of the revenue allocation system. Some people have suggested 5% from the consolidated fund. I overheard some of my colleagues talking about 2.5%. Some talking about 1% from the consolidated fund. Some suggesting even 1% from the consolidated fund. But we are not unmindful of the enormity of the responsibility or responsibilities of the federal government and the realities on ground as to how the federal government is grappling with payment of salaries and pensions. If you think about it that way, some people also are suggesting that, look, a lot of money is going to the states. And so rather than pinch the federal government allocation by providing for funding of state police from the consolidated fund, we should be thinking about putting in some caveats that will provide for a percentage of the funds that goes to the states to fund the state police. Because like I said, unlike before, when less than a trillion is shared by the states, right now we have over 2 trillion shared by the states. So as a result, like they say, of the withdrawal of oil subsidy, there is a lot of funds now available to the states and local governments.
Okay.
And so the suggestion is that, yes, let the state fund their own police services through some percentages on first-line charge paid to the State Police Service Commission. But again, that is work in process. And we expect that when the bill eventually comes, senators and members of the House of Representatives will debate, cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and make sure that there is adequate provision of funds for the funding of state police services.
James, what do you think? Do you think that the process from the removal of fuel subsidy will be sufficient to fund the police? And I'm asking that advisedly, because Senator Moro has told us that in the past, money that was shared by FARC was far less than what we have today. But in real terms, when you look at the purchasing power of the Naira today, it's probably, there's probably not much of an increase. The increase might be marginal when you think about the real purchasing power that the money has. And one critical issue that people have also talked about is that they want to know what the state governments are doing with the extra cash that they have with them, vis-a-vis the need to reduce the cost of governance.
I think for me...
I need you to be quick because we must go now.
Okay, for me, I think the National Assembly are thinking at the right direction. By looking at those extra funds to, pick from. But the more important thing is that these security votes that have been, given to the state government over the years, which we in the civil society have been asking the question, what are they using it for? I think this is the time that we need to ask the question the more. Then again, most of these state government, they generate internal revenue. So it's time for them to now start plugging revenue leakage because there are expenses to be made this time around. So for me, with that support from the federal government and of course any serious states should now be looking at how do we generate funds to support this system. So it's not an impossible task, because if you go to most of these states, revenues are being collected by party faithfuls or any person that they deem fit. So such leakages now
must be blocked.
And most states have even gone e-tax system to block all these leakages. So I believe that all the states will not be, well equipped in terms of supporting their state police, but to a large extent, most of them will be able to breathe at the end of the day.
All right. Senator Abba Moro, Senator representing Benue South Senatorial District and former Minister of Interior, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
James Ogochukwu, Regional General Secretary, West African Civil Society Forum, thank you for coming on the program and thank you for your insights too. So much for the conversation on the passage of the State Police Bill by the Nigerian Senate. On Kakaaki, the African Voice this morning, we go on now to our next segment, which is State of Human Rights.
Hello and welcome to State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. I am Omoye Ogbaki. Today, we analyze a grim and deeply unsettling milestone in the landscape of civil liberties and human security in Nigeria. On Tuesday, 16 June 2026, the National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, released its monthly Human Rights Situation Dashboard, capturing the data for May 2026. The verdict from the Commission is clear and sobering. May has emerged as a truly devastating month for human rights across the Federation. According to the newly released data, the NHRC recorded a staggering 268,787 human rights complaints in May alone. This marks yet another upward surge from the previous months, highlighting an intensifying wave of violence hitting everyday Nigerians from multiple fronts, from the relentless pressures of insecurity and mass abductions to institutional overreach and economic vulnerabilities. The May dashboard paints a picture of a populace under immense distress. Unveiling these figures at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja, the Executive Secretary of the NHRC, Dr. Tony Ojukwu, SAN, warned that the compounding nature of these violations requires urgent systemic interventions. Let's take a look.
This month, we received a total of 268,787 complaints, highlighting ongoing challenges we face in securing human rights for all Nigerians. Notably, violations involving state actors remain the most significant concern. May 2026 has been a devastating month for human rights in Nigeria. Within the span of 31 days, we witnessed incidents that deeply challenge our collective commitment to human dignity and fundamental freedoms. Across several states, civilians lost their lives, children were taken from schools, worshippers were attacked in places of prayer, and security personnel paid the ultimate price while preparing to protect others. These incidents reflect not isolated tragedies, but a broader humanitarian concern that requires urgent national attention. One of the most disturbing incidents recorded during the month occurred in Tumfa, Zurmi local government area of Zamfara State, where a military airstrike reportedly struck a civilian market patronized by terrorists. The National Human Rights Commission has been in consultation with the Nigerian Air Force and is encouraged by efforts made by the Air Force to investigate cases of airstrikes that might have affected civilians. The Commission continues to call for the adoption of national policy for the protection of civilians as a whole of a country policy. I am aware that the Nigerian Air Force has a policy for the protection of civilians, but we will have to make it a whole of a country policy. The abduction of children should be viewed as more than isolated criminal incidents. It raises serious concerns about compliance with the existing constitutional guarantees, child protection laws, and school safety policies, including our Declaration for Safe Schools Children. In Kwara State, worshippers gathered in place of prayer and they were attacked, resulting in the death and abduction of 15 worshippers. Equally alarming is the disturbing surge in abductions targeting religious worshippers, a deliberate strategy that not only terrorizes communities, but also erodes the foundational principles of freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, as enshrined in Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These incidents and many more remind us that insecurity continues to affect not only public spaces, but also institutions and communities that should remain protected.
With 268,787 cases on the books for May, the structural and regional breakdowns show where the pressure points are hitting hardest. Geopolitically, the data reveals that certain regions continue to bear a disproportionate share of conflict, displacement, and institutional friction. The North Central Zone, as observed in previous months, remains a heavily impacted hotspot due to ongoing communal conflicts, land disputes, and farmer herders crisis. Concurrently, urban centers like the Federal Capital Territory and Lagos continue to lodge exceptionally high volume numbers, a reflection of both high population density and the localized institutional abuses. The thematic spectrum of the May dashboard shows that the right to life, freedom from unlawful detention, and economic rights were the most severely compromised categories. To walk us through the specific harrowing metrics of violence, casualties, and the exact data behind these mass violations is the Senior Human Rights Advisor to the NHRC, Hilary Ogbonna.
In terms of sexual and gender-based violence, we recorded 61 sexual violence, but what should really appeal to us is the fact that we have 1,810 domestic violence cases, and these are ranging from different types of violence, beating especially, and this is one of our most reported complaints and most dealt with complaints. Next. In terms of child rights violations, we continue to see child abandonment topping in terms of violations, as well as issues around child custody, children's right to survival and development in accordance with the Child Rights Act. Now, in terms of the top 10 states, we are looking at the FCT, obviously, because the FCT has more complaints. Next. Now, this represents our work as NHRC in the month of May. In the month of May, we were able to complete 3,560 complaints. We were also able to issue letters to Nigerian police for explanations on those violations. 32 of such letters were issued. You recall in the previous slides, law enforcement was a major complaint that people brought before us. Now, we didn't stop at just issuing letters. We also embarked on visitations to police stations and other places of detention, and we recorded 107 of such in the month of May. We also visit military formations, either for enlightenment of the Nigerian Armed Forces or to present complaints that are directly against the Nigerian Armed Forces. In the month of May, we recorded 2 of such visits. Now, when you look at the graph on your right, that's the number of complaints we completed in May 2026, across geopolitical zones. Northeast recorded the highest, followed by the Northwest and the North Central.
The data from the May 2026 dashboard proves that we are in a critical period for human rights enforcement in Nigeria. With over 268,000 complaints, the sheer volume tells us that silence is no longer an option for the victims of abuse. Impunity thrives in the dark, but it begins to fracture the moment a citizen steps forward to demand accountability. The National Human Rights Commission has expanded its infrastructure to ensure that no matter where you are in Nigeria, your grievances can be heard, tracked, and acted upon. You do not have to suffer institutional cruelty, domestic violence, or illegal detention in silence. If you or someone you know has had their fundamental rights violated, make the call. Dial the NHRC toll-free number directly at 6472. Once again, that number is 6472. And alternatively, you can dial 0800-6472-428. It is free across all network. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode of State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. Until next time, I am Omoyo Ogbaki. Bye for now.
Thanks, Amaya, for that package. And it's the last segment of Kakaaki, the African Voice, for this Thursday, the 25th day of June, 2026. We thank you for spending time with us, too. We thank you for all the comments that you sent in on the YouTube channel. Of course, we thank you for also starting your day with us on Africa Independent Television. Don't go away, because at 9 o'clock, Political Platform will come your way across both platforms, on TV, on radio, as well as on our social media handles as well. Of course, you'll find it at Political Platform, of course, at Red Power FM, rather, on YouTube. That's where you can join that program. But for Kakaaki, the African Voice, time to go. Have a great day as you drive in the FCT and wherever it is that it's raining this morning. Please drive safely. Do not overspeed, and ensure that you get to your destination safely. Wash your hands and stay safe wherever you are. Have a great day. My name is Kunle Adewale.